funding that step change innovation, especially at a time like we're in right now? You can start.
Okay. I think we can all agree that, well, how about I start with this? Just a couple minutes ago, I was Twittering into my Facebook profile that I was sitting in this conference room. Does anyone know what I just said? How many people here know what Twitter is, what a Facebook profile is? Damn, that's good. That's really good. I was at the Jewish Agency and there were like 3 hands up, so you guys are a lot more progressive. 5 years ago, there was no such thing as an online social network in the shape and form that we know now. The way that people develop communities and the way that they communicate with one another, the way that they leverage assets and that they develop programs in order to solve problems is just completely and utterly different. To think that the institutions that we developed over the past 100 years before there were cell phones, let alone the ability to tweet in a Facebook update status, is preposterous. Breakthrough innovations are important, therefore, in this time because the times have changed so radically that if we don't change the way that we address the problems that exist, if we do not understand the capacity of the individual who exists not only in this time and space, but also digitally. I'm sitting here, but people are poking me on Facebook. There's a need there that we need to be able to address that our current organizations at this stage won't have. Entrepreneurship is also important. Innovation, taking organizational resources and applying them in new ways is crucial. But if you don't have a breakthrough either within or without, then we're just going to go down.
There's this great Professor Clay Christensen at Harvard Business School who's written about something called disruptive innovations. People have probably read that, but I would really read his work, Disruptive Innovations, Clay Christensen. And I think that the best breakthrough is, it's like happiness. You know, if you spend your life trying to be happy, you won't be. If you try to do things that are of value, the byproduct is you may very well be happy. And so I don't think we should be focusing on breakthroughs per se. I think we should be figuring out what are the things we really need to be doing and just do them.
Amen.
Yeah, I think breakthrough innovation is a byproduct of really trying to connect as many people who are talented with one another in various different fields, and it'll happen because talent finds talent and they'll come up with some catalytic opportunity.
The only thing I'll say is sort of as a joke, though, I mean, what you have to be conscious of what doesn't get it also, right? And so the very specific, very focused grant to do only one thing with this reporting requirement and this amount of time before you get feedback, that has a role to play. But just to be clear that that's not this. And you know, if I would suggest one thing, it's the idea of philanthropy as an asset allocation. Within your philanthropy having an asset allocation, although maybe not anymore, just as you would in your but the idea of portfolio theory is that they're uncorrelated assets, right? And so similarly, it's not to say that only we should be funding innovation, only we should be funding social entrepreneurship, but if you look at the sector as a whole and ask, how am I allocating? Maybe there's an issue that I care about, but within that issue, are there 4 or 5 different strategies, and maybe one only is 5%. It would strike me as a whole that we underfund this kind of approach relative to other approaches.
Can I just take a quick, I fear the talent meets and finds talent approach. The reason being that like finds like. And when we're talking about in a market environment, specifically in the nonprofit sphere where people are very, I mean, they're conscious of funding the things that their families have funded for a while and being involved in the things that they've been involved in for a while. In times of such radical technological and social change, it frightens me, frankly, that the talent that exists in this room or in the funding community in general will only look for talent that they understand. In many ways, taking that risk and understanding that we don't really know what's going to be in 5 years. If 5 years ago we could never imagine that Twitter would be doing what it's doing in terms of a social movement, we won't know what's going to happen in 5 years from now. And so I think that taking risk, talent finding, unlike talent, perhaps would be the righter way to put it.
Absolutely. Friendly amendment accepted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No, and I guess a related point on that, I mean, a challenge just that I don't know that we haven't figured out the answer to at all, but we're seeing, we had a college student at Brown come to us and she was giving a speech and she said that she thought that social enterprise was the cause for their generation as the environmental movement was 30 years ago. And where that terrifies us is that we are, we're 50 people globally, we are small. We have, for example, 10 global spots this summer for summer internships, and we got 700 people applying. And so A, how do we pick the best 10, but we know we'll get that more or less wrong. But B, what in the world do we and the sector do about those other 690 people? And if you think about the talent and the skill that's being released of all of these layoffs, which are more or less indiscriminate, there is this really, really disruptive opportunity to take all of those skills and redeploy them, because the job is not coming back at Goldman Sachs, frankly. And so there is really, really an opportunity to say, either from a talent perspective or the attitude towards funding or whatever it is, now is a chance. And I'll just say from where we sit that the volume of interest that we're getting so outstrips our ability to treat it even in the right way. And we just don't really know what to do with this problem outside of trying to create platforms for it.
One last question, just following up what you were saying, Sasha, a couple minutes ago about how across your portfolio of investments, you might engage differently, a funder might engage differently. So I'm wondering if you could help those of us who may have a one-size-fits-all engagement strategy. This is our document you sign, this is the way we measure you, this is the frequency with which we hear from you, et cetera, et cetera. How would you advise all of us to do the engagement with the innovation piece of our portfolio?
I mean, I have only the most practical answer, which is, just if you have a sense in your gut that this is going to get in the way, then you don't really need to do it. I mean, it's a question of asking, I think, yourself of what is this controlling for? I know that there'll be some discussion of Charity Navigator, I think, at this conference as well. And there's been a mindset that was created over a while of 10% overhead and 10% for fundraising is sort of your benchmark. And I think the world has agreed that that's a benchmark. It creates accountability for one set of things, but maybe not other sets of things. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer the question outside of saying, if nothing else, if you think you found somebody really great and really innovative and you show them your stuff and they say, gosh, that makes me really nervous, then if you have a relationship on trust, then say, well, what would work for you? And go from there.
I think we need to think of assets as more than just money in this particular case. And I think there are different ways to look at assets. And it's obvious, based on what everybody said, that there are other things. And foundations and funders need to think more broadly about how to deploy them.
I think primarily the challenge is to grow out the management team and enable that management team to grow its product, in a sense, if you're thinking in using for-profit terminology for a nonprofit. And when people invest in companies, they know that it's developing that core and that capacity that'll help it grow, and then seeing it withstand the test. I think that just giving grants and hoping that it works, in a sense, assumes a little bit, maybe too much. There's a great book that I'm sure everyone here has read called The E-Myth, about the entrepreneur and the idea that an entrepreneur comes into their job as in a sense a technician, an artisan, do what they do very well. Take Matt Barr, our Bible rapper, for example. He's a great rapper and he's a great educator. He's not a businessman. He doesn't know how to develop his tour. He doesn't know how to develop a product that gets sold. Now, a funder could say, well, here's $20,000, go do with it something. Or they could say, well, how about we're going to help you from our experience to develop this tour. We're going to help you from our experience to get someone who does that, and then you can see it really flower. So I think that if investors start thinking about, or philanthropists think like investors, then you can really round out a team and help it grow and sustain itself over time.
Great. And now it's your turn to ask questions. Microphones are coming around.
Hello. My name is Richard Goodman. I'm from Oakland, California. And I have an issue which touches on many of the things that have been brought up. I'm a major funder of a social enterprise which has a preeminent social entrepreneur at its head, David Green. And it is totally disruptive. It's for providing a new distribution model for hearing aids in the third world. And a year ago, it looked, when we started it, it looked like right now would be the time we would be getting second stage funding of approximately $2 million. So now we're in our current market. Do any of you have suggestions as to where to pursue financing in a time in a market like this?